Today, we're back at the Strategy Sherpa Show, and we have John Liotta with us, and he is going to be sharing some of his leadership wisdom that he's acquired over the years. And John, why don't you share with the audience a little bit about yourself, because we like to learn a little bit about the leaders and what they've done up to now and where they're at in their career right now.
Sure. Well, I spent 20 years in the beverage business prior to the industry that I'm in now, which is private aviation, which is perhaps an odd transition. But 20 years in that business was primarily in fine wine, but also sort of dabbled in other beverages like craft beer and, beverage design, which was sort of the last thing that I did prior to joining my current organization. And that industry is very unique in the sense that, it's a very small world across the globe. So, who you meet is somebody that you're going to know forever. And so you could be in a small place, or you could be, all the way across the world, and you're going to know the same people throughout, forever. And so transitioning into the company that I'm in now, I realized that that was one of the first important sort of lessons that I learned. I may not have had that, that same sort of skill set, going into it, but relationships was the primary crossover that I was able to say, hey, that's something I know.
Okay, well, now I have to ask you, because there's a lot of listeners out here that love wine. So what's your favorite wine?
Well, having learned about wine when I was probably a teenager from, my father and growing up in an Italian family, like I've had to experience it because I'm 47 years old. I've got to experience it for a really long time. And so I've grown to have a very refined, and I would almost say like sort of snobbish, palate. Yeah, because I've grown into it. So I really love red Burgundy, and I love Spanish Rioja. But primarily what I am now is I'm producer driven rather than regional, or varietal specific. So I'm the kind of person where, I may not say I love like Napa Valley Cab, but there are like 3 or 4 producers there that I've been following for 20 plus years, and those are my guys.
Okay,
Right.
well, hold on then. You have to share with us who are those three?
Yeah. So like in California, probably like Dominus is somebody that I've been buying, since their inception, or like Ridge, Montebello, or like Spotswood.
So those are your three favorite wines out of California, the wineries themselves.
Right.
Okay, all right. So I should have
That's
said
right.
winery, not wine. Okay. So and you like the
Sure.
bold reds then, is what you really like yourself.
Sure. And like I said, it's a distinction between being producer specific versus being like varietally specific. So someone saying they like Cabernet or Pinot Noir versus someone saying they like a distinct producer, right?
Right.
And I think that's something that you can say every year I buy Napa Valley Cab versus saying every year I buy Dominus.
Yeah. Every year I buy Stag's Leap Cab, so
Right.
I'm a diehard fan of theirs. So been a Wine Club member for far too long. So
Right.
all right. Well, let's get on to the purpose of our show, because we got a little off on the wine, and we could probably do a whole show just on wine.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about what we do in these 13-minute segments. Is we talk a little bit about a leadership lesson you've learned, and I know you have a variety of things you've done in your career. You crossed over into this private aviation, and you've been helping in that. And why don't you share with us some of the lessons, or one of the lessons you've learned that's really changed how you think about things?
Sure. I think, for me, one of my favorite lessons is just understanding accountability in an organization. And a lot of times, you know, I would say a dysfunctional organization thinks of accountability in singular terms, right? So a dysfunctional organization is like, you know, David, you need to be personally accountable. And
I
that's
don't know
it,
what
you
that
know.
means. So,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
it. It's like, we want you to be accountable and that's it, right? But on the other hand, David says back to the organization, well, I want you to be accountable, right? And there's the, you know, how does a functional organization work is that it requires personal accountability for the individual. There's also team accountability for how you're subdivided within your organization. And then there's company accountability. And
Yeah,
all
makes
of those
sense.
things have to work together. And they can't work separately. And they not one of them can fail in order for the organization to be successful. And you know what a really exceptional company has to do is they have to, in order for that to work, they first have to apply their core values, you know, to everybody in the company. And then they have to say, when something goes awry, like, we are accountable first. And then we have to disseminate that down to the team and then down to the individual. And it goes back up that way. And if it doesn't work in that manner, then the company itself is truly dysfunctional, because you can't just ask your employee to be the one who bears the burden,
That's
right?
correct.
You
Yeah.
know, it has to work all together. And that sometimes it's an eye-opening experience when you realize, you know, that an organization or a team specifically is not being held accountable, or they're not functioning, but why they're not functioning. And it's because there's not all of those individual levels of accountability that's in there.
Yeah, it's really interesting how you're saying it too. I love what you said. So accountability when it comes to a team that you lead, what you're saying is if there's an accountability gap, it's your issue first.
Right.
Okay.
So first, you know, a manager or a company should not have to, like, you know, dangle a reward, right, for a person to have to do something, right?
Mhm.
That is key for an organization. Personal accountability should come because a person feels a responsibility to not only do a good job, but they feel a personal responsibility because they believe in the core values. And as you know, that separates, you know, your good employees from your great employees, from your average, from your subpar, you know, kind of people. But the other part is that team accountability, you know, has to do with that overall, like, general self-awareness of the team itself, but of good leaders, you know, for the team. There has
Love
to
them.
be a good leader there. And then when you talk about company accountability, it's all, once again, it's based off of the core values, but you know, the behavior that rules the organization is what's really key, because the organization can't just sit, you know, up at the top and sort of like rule from afar without thinking, hey, listen, you know, we made these core values, everything's fine.
Right,
Everybody's doing
right,
fine, right?
right.
Like, they have to be able to have some sense of what's happening intra-team and with employees. And that obviously comes through communication.
Yeah, and I love how you're saying this because I talk to a lot of business leaders, right? And I'll ask them if they have core values in their company, and then they'll say, "Oh yeah, of course we do. Well, we live by them." Okay, well, what are your core values?
Mm.
Um, Crickets.
Yeah.
And it's okay if you live by them. How do you not know them? Because to me, in order to hold people accountable to them or to praise people around them, you
Mhm.
have to really know what the core values are. I mean,
Right.
we just did a meeting yesterday, and we started off our meeting. We spent probably 20 minutes going out through all of our core values and asking each other, how are we doing? What's the one we're struggling with the most, and which one were we doing the best with?
Right.
And every person had to share their own story, and that's good, because what we actually did was allow each other to learn what we're struggling with so we can help each other.
That's right. And even then, it's if somebody does know their core values, right? It's give me an example of those in action, you know,
Yeah.
and that's something that I think you can write them. You can, you can brainstorm all together as a senior team, and you can be like, then, wipe your hands and be like, we did it, right? We came up with some core values. Okay, now show them in action, right? Show me an example. Like one of our core values is transparency. Show me transparency in action. Show me how you executed that, here or at the team level or at the individual level. Show me how you executed that. And
Yeah, I'm sharing with you that I've never heard that question asked that way. And I've been doing this a long time now, and I've never heard it asked that way. And I love the way you're asking it. Show me how, or tell me a story of how that would work.
yeah.
Right? That's pretty impactful. I'm going to steal that from you.
Well,
I'm serious. I'm going to use that because I think that that's a really great question.
but aren't core values executable? They're not there
Oh,
to be
most definitely.
mythical. Yeah, they're not there to be like, they're not there to be put in a picture frame that you're going to look at and be like, yeah, that's great. They're there to be executable. And now show me an example, and that's what leadership is.
Yeah, I just love how you're tying the two things together, and I love how you're talking about them because I have core values. It makes it easier for me to hold people accountable, but I have to have core values. They can't be a plaque on a wall, as you stated.
Mhm.
And I love the wisdom you have around this. Your 47 years of life is shining through on that because we don't learn these things right away when we're younger. Sometimes these things seem a little like, okay, this is just something this company is going to do. Sounds like you really understand how to use these core values to motivate and inspire people to get the results you're looking for.
Well, I appreciate it. And,
Yeah.
a lot of it has to do with your company and how much, you guys have brought to our company and the learning, that we've been able to, take from it.
And that makes me proud because this is the first time I've actually met you. I know of you, but it's the first time I've met you. And it makes me proud that you say that because I know our team cares a lot about our core values and they care a lot about serving our clients really well. And I think that some of the things you shared with us, I've learned something in this time. And I appreciate you taking the time and sharing your wisdom with some other people so that they can learn about some of these things. So, John, thank you very much for coming today and joining us on the show. And we'll be right back after this. Thank you very much. All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Strategy Sherpa Show. And on the show, we have Jordan with us today, and he is with one of the clients that we work with, and he's one of the great leaders there. And how do you say your last name? Is it Benzing?
Yeah, it's Benzing. Yep, you got it.
Okay. I just wanted to say it correctly. I didn't want to get that wrong because I know how names are important.
They are.
So Jordan, what we do in these segments, and these are really cool little segments because it really helps people learn a little bit about leadership because I think all of us have a little bit of wisdom we could share with the audience. And even if I know something, it sort of reminds me of something I need to be doing as a leader or thinking about a little bit better. So we try to share some of these wisdom. And, look, I've had the opportunity to work with you and I have a lot of respect for especially for your strategic mind. It was pretty amazing sitting in a retreat with you. But why don't you share with us some of your wisdom?
Absolutely, I'd be happy to. One of the big things I think kind of that dawned on me, it took me a while, was this understanding people's fear-based motivations. Fear is an incredibly powerful motivator. And I don't mean that as a tool perspective. I mean it from a perspective of guiding people's behavior and causing what people do day to day. And it's important. I think it's really so important, especially if you're dealing with younger hires or people who are new to the industry or new or brand new to the workforce, is to really kind of understand what's going through their mindset. I know personally, I've been going through it. I've been working with your program. I've been working with your coaches as well. I've had a lot of growth personally over the past year, dealing with my own personal fears, and it's not something we reflect on a lot of the time. And especially like as a leader, someone who's expected to have the answers, you're supposed to be able to pull out and play the card of like, yes, I know the answer to that. There's a certain level of fear there if you don't know the answer. And coming to grips with that and being okay with it is so important, because if you try to like snowball your way through it, people know. People immediately know. And not only that, it can cause this weird fight or flight behind the scenes for it. And especially as a scaling up company when you're growing, it's easy to not be willing to take the time to process it and figure out what I'm doing here. Why am I doing it? Because you want to go fast, go fast, go fast, go fast, go fast. And you're used to that foxhole mentality of go fast and we'll figure it out together. And taking that time to process and think through it is super important.
Yeah.
I think.
Go ahead. No,
go ahead. Go ahead.
I always say the fear is the F word in the room, right?
Absolutely.
It's the 4-letter F word that really trips leaders up more than anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so whenever I'm not doing something, or whenever something's not going as well as I'd like it to, I always ask myself, what's my fear?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yep. Right now. And I think that that's what you're saying is that you're really finding it fascinating dealing with fear and watching it in others and trying to help them understand their own fear.
Absolutely. And one of the biggest detriments, I think, to people's work days. So one of the things that I focus on a lot is I work on kind of the IT and the security components of that, right? Is like there's this fear to not getting your job done at times, right? And so like one of the core components even of my role is helping to remove that fear for people, right? How do we come in and have a good, positive, successful work day? Well, how do you work if you're afraid? If you're afraid of doing the wrong thing, if you're afraid your computer isn't going to work right at the end of the day, if you're afraid that all that work that you just did is going to go down the drain because you failed to save it, my boss isn't going to like the way that I presented this. I'm afraid that I'm not going to get approval in order to go forward and do this. So how do we mitigate that and coach people towards doing that, to see things as we have this thing internally that we like to call 2-door decisions. Is this a 1-door decision? Is it a 2-door decision? Is it I think you guys use the system of, is it a branch decision? Is it a leaf decision? Is it a trunk decision that's going to really shape the decision of the company? And helping people understand this is a leaf decision. It's okay if it's wrong. Like what's the worst that's going to happen? We're going to be sad and we waste an hour of work. Who cares?
Yeah, if the leaf falls off the tree and dies, the tree's not going to die. No one's going to lose anything that much. I mean, of course, we'll have a little loss because we don't want to lose any leaves. But at the same time, it's not going to kill the tree.
Exactly. So, and everything else, maybe it was a leaf that was growing in a bad spot, and that means we can redirect that energy to grow some leaves in other locations that have better sunlight for us, right? So maybe it ends up being, even though it cost us by losing the leaf, maybe it ends up being a net positive because we learned how not to do it, right? Yeah. I think it was a Thomas Edison quote or something like that. I think he learned 900 ways to not create a light bulb or something like that along the way. Like, I learned 1,000 ways of doing it wrong. It's not that I failed, I learned, and that's something that's so profoundly powerful, I think, for people, is this fear of failure.
Right.
And we get so much exposure to that as kids, as children in schools, from our grading system early on, from everything else all the way up, that we get this massive amount of fear of failure. And failure is the best teacher in the world.
Yes.
We learn so much by failing. And when we don't allow that failure to happen in safe, controlled ways and managed ways as leaders, we cripple our team members. We cripple them because we don't enable them to grow. Yeah. So we have to provide that to them.
I love how you're saying that too, because it's I have to make mistakes to get better, right? And I have to be comfortable that I am going to make mistakes. And that's really the premise of this whole show. I'm actually interviewing leaders to talk about the mistakes they made. And because at the time we're making the decision, we think it's the best decision in the world, right? Yep. And then everything's going haywire on us. And we're like, hold on, I thought this was the best decision in the world. Then there's a lot of self-judgment, right? And how do we get through some of that self-judgment? Because really, I just had a lot of valuable lessons that came to me, which makes me a lot better leader. I should be grateful for the mistake. I should fix it, whatever happened, because that's my responsibility as a leader. and then I need to get myself back in the game.
Absolutely. It's such a growth, such a growth mindset, right? It's there's this identity component that we attach to when we make a decision, especially when it's a good decision. As a component of that, we feel good about it. We feel empowered by it. And the same is also true when we make that bad decision, you know, in the moment. Maybe it's a bad decision. We didn't know it was a bad decision at the time, but it turns out it is, right? We still wrap our identity in it in that same way. And it's so easy to get up in the positive ego of good decisions and forget about how harmful that negative ego is when we get caught in the bad decision. And there's that fight or flight response that comes along with fear every single time along with it. And the sooner we can break free of that we can break free and go, okay, hang on. I didn't, and maybe it was even if it was an expensive decision, right? If we could turn that message from a message of I failed, right? That I statement. That I statement is dangerous, right? It's dangerous and it's painful and it takes you down that drama triangle of rabbit hole doom, right? Of I failed. I am a failure, right?
There you go. That's the word. I am a failure.
Yeah. That right there, when you get encapsulated and trapped in that, that's the problem of the doom spiral when you're a leader. When instead it becomes something that's more of, in this situation, this was a bad decision. And I've learned that these things didn't work well. These things do. And here's how I remediate that and fix it in the future. And not just fix it in the future for myself, but here's the guardrails I now provide to my team and to my mentees that I'm going to mentor to help them avoid repeating that same mistake.
Yeah. And go ahead and keep on going.
I got one last piece of that and the most important part about that, I think Satya does a really great job of this. He's talked a lot about this. There's also it's been making the rounds recently in the recent news is leading first with empathy, is understanding that you were not the first. You were not the first. You were not the last to make that bad decision. You will have directs afterwards, and getting mad at them doesn't help. Getting frustrated with them doesn't help. May feel good in the moment, right? Yelling at it may feel good in the moment because it was really painful for the business and the company. But being empathetic and remembering, I've done that too, and understanding that the amount of fear that they are processing and helping them not only fix the problem, but deal with the fact that they are going through a massive amount of turbulent emotions is so important. Of how do we do that? And because we don't know what their personal situation was. Maybe they do a really bad job of dealing with fear. Maybe they do a really bad job of this. Maybe they had a bad, a different experience with childhood. Maybe they had a great experience. You don't know until you know, right? But helping them manage that, that's what it takes towards being a leader. Not just the good stuff. We always want to do the good stuff. We always like to, put our hat on, like, look at all these good things I helped my team accomplish, beat our chest, right? On that one. But I think that's what's even more important as a leader is how did I help people in their moments of failure?
Right. And I love how you're saying this because it's so hard sometimes to see some of this stuff happening. And you just ask yourself, hey, what's causing that person fear? And sometimes it's their own stuff and just helping them understand what they can't see. And it sounds like you're really focusing on trying to help them see what they can't see, or you're trying to help them work through the fear because, like you said, it causes fight, flight, and freeze. These three things could happen when somebody's in fear. And when these three things happen, it pushes them in defense, which causes them to go into the negative part of the drama triangle, where we start to blame others. We start to become a victim of other people's actions, things like that. And like you said, if I'm going to be a leader, I am going to make mistakes and I have to understand, and it's okay to have fear. I mean, fear is actually a powerful helper too, right? We don't want to lose that ability to have fear, but we also want to understand what it is, right? And what it's doing to us. Is it fear because of my ego? Or is it fear because I didn't do something I was supposed to do, right? And I feel obligated. Well, if you feel obligated, then fix it, right? That's because that's what I should really do when I first realize I'm in fear.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I really loved how you summed it all up. Do you have any closing words for everybody? Because we're about finished with the segment, but if you do you have any closing words that you'd like to say?
Just that I would encourage people and I would encourage our leaders to continue thinking about how can I lead with empathy? We're not going to be the first person there. We're not going to be the last person there. Learn from our mistakes, leverage what we've experienced, and understand that other people are going to go through it too and help them out.
Yeah, empathy is the key here. And Jordan, I knew you were going to be an awesome guest on the show, and I really appreciate you coming and sharing some of your wisdom today. And I'll look forward to sitting in the next meeting with you in just a few weeks in Cancun.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Can't wait to see you there on the sunny beach.
All right, see you soon.
See you soon.
Take care. All right. Hey, welcome back to the Strategy Sherpa Show. This is David Chavez, and I have a special guest for you right now. We have Lucas Grams, and Lucas and I got an opportunity to meet when I was speaking at a group, Vistage group in Toledo. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So, tell us a little bit about you, Lucas. Like, where did you grow up in the world? Are you from Toledo?
I grew up right over the border in Michigan, so it's a little town called Ottawa Lake. Little tiny school, Whiteford Agricultural School, so really grew up around farms, stuff like that.
What did you do on the farm if you grew up on a farm? Everything?
I just grew up around farms. I didn't actually farm myself.
Oh, okay. You were lucky enough to not to have to do that brutal work, huh? All right.
Yeah.
All right. And so you grew up in the town, and then what took you to Toledo?
It's so close. I mean, Toledo has everything like close by, has the mall. I came here ever since I was little. I was actually born in Toledo,
Uh-huh.
but grew up right over the border, so it's 5-10 minutes out.
Yeah, it's not very far at all. It's right because Toledo's right on the border. But so so where are you working now? Why don't you share with us where you're at right now?
I work for TARTA, or the Toledo Area Regional Transit Authority.
Hmm?
I am an accounting manager.
Okay.
I deal with our grants, our budget, dealing with payroll, all that kind of fun stuff.
Oh yeah, well, I'm a CPA myself, so I know exactly what you're saying. It's so much fun. Sometimes it puts you to sleep.
Oh, yes.
I'm just joking. I know you probably love your job, and I loved accounting. I still do, but at the same time, off on other ventures now. But so share with us. Do you have people that are on your team with you?
Yes, our whole accounting team is about 10 people. We actually had our CFO depart a couple of weeks ago.
Oh wow.
So beforehand, I was mainly supervising 2 people, but now it's kind of jumped up to 4. So kind of just split between the other managers and really just trying to get through until we find a replacement.
Okay, so you're being thrust into leadership, is what you're telling me.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So like what we do on these segments here, we take people like yourself who have become leaders, and we like to share with each other one thing that we've really learned. Like, what's one of the biggest lessons you've had in your leadership up to now? Like something that when you learned that you were like, oh my goodness, I thought this was totally different, and now I found out it's a lot different sitting on the other side of this.
Yeah, so there's a difference between being helpful and being taken advantage of.
Okay.
There's times where you want to be helpful. You're like, I know how to do this, but at certain times it's not really your job to do so. So you kind of have to make that balance of like, does this relate to me? Can I be helpful? Do I have enough time to be helpful without letting my other tasks like suffer?
Okay. So my guess is an accountant on a have you ever taken a DISC profile, a behavioral profile called DISC?
I have.
Okay, so you would probably be a high S and a high C is my guess. Very detail orientated, want to take your time, very helpful person. Matter of fact, you're probably known for helping people.
Yeah, that sounds pretty accurate. I don't remember what my score was on the top of my head, but that sounds about right.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. So like it's hard for if somebody comes to you and asks you for help, it's hard for you not to help so much. You may be doing their job. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because I've always grown up wanting to be helpful and nice and everything like that, but got to make sure I get my own stuff done.
Okay, so what you're talking about is like when your team members are coming and asking you for help, you not jumping in and taking it over from them. Is that what you're talking about?
Uh, with my own team, it would be guiding them on how to do it themselves.
Okay.
But I do have instances where other departments will also come to accounting and look for help or projects and stuff like that. So that's where you more have to put your foot down.
Okay. And so you got to be careful with it because if you don't, then you're not going to get done your work and it's going to reflect on you poorly.
Yep. And the more you do it, the more the precedent is set that they can come to you for help.
Yeah, that's right. You just become a door then after that, after a while, right?
Absolutely.
And so what did you learn? What's the mistake you made? So did you get yourself in a little bit of hot water because you were helping somebody else and didn't get your stuff done once or?
I was fortunate enough to have my boss here when I did because I was asked from other department, like the chiefs, that like to start helping with a project, and I was about ready to start on that when my boss asked what I was up to, and they're like, "Well, that's not your job. They shouldn't be asking you that." And then it really opened up my eyes then without actually getting me in trouble. So I've been much more vigilant since then.
Okay. Yeah. So a lot of times when I think I learned a lot of leadership lessons from stepping on grenades. I'm a little more assertive in my personality, but at the same time, we do something and even being helpful to somebody, and then you realize it's causing you problems. So you paid attention. And now you're leading 4 people. So share with me what that experience has been like, because you went from 2 to 4 really quickly. And did the CFO leave relatively quick?
Yeah, there was she gave it 2 weeks notice.
That's quick for a CFO,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
so it was roughly about April 17th. She put the notice in, was gone. Oh wait, I think she was gone on the 10th, so it's been almost a month now that she's been gone. So
Okay. And
it's
and
been
you inherited everything right away, right?
a good portion of it. We do have a couple other managers. I'm more accounting focused. Comparatively, we have the procurement manager and the grant manager who helps write grants, and I've been able to step up on the accounting side and kind of was able to help push off anything I was doing for grants to him so I could focus on the accounting side of things.
Yeah. And how do you like leading people overall?
Um, Pretty well. There's definitely a balance of like trying to like teach people, but also like got to make sure everything gets done. So being able to allocate enough time to make the work balance easier, making sure they have enough to do, you have enough to do, and no one's just sitting around.
Yeah. So when I spoke to your group, you're in this leadership group. What's the biggest thing you've learned from the group so far? If you could think about it and share it with me. Is there anything you've really learned that's really been like, I never really thought of that?
Yeah, I actually think you might have been the one speaking on that. The when we were talking about like the Simon Sinek,
Start with what? Mhm.
yeah, the what, how, why, or no, the why, how, what,
Yeah.
instead of the what, how, why. Because I really thought about it and I was like trying to think of my own personal stuff and I was like, what is my core? And I mean,
Yes.
I think I'm still trying to figure that out right now. I mean, I am young, but like it's just like what's my core?
Right. Well, I think it takes us, I think you're on a life journey. I don't know if you'll ever 100% discover everything you want about yourself, but, and your life will constantly be shifting, but understanding your why or why you're doing what you do Why did you choose accounting?
I chose accounting because my dad's in the finance field and numbers have always worked well in my head. I can remember back when I was like in third grade, I got A's in math, but I still wanted a math tutor because I just loved it so much.
Yeah, yeah. That's funny because I have a similar story. Algebra was the only C I got in college. And when I took algebra, I just had a bad professor, you know what I'm saying? And I loved math like you did. I always wanted more and always to learn more. And when I took calculus, I was at UNLV and I took calculus. I had this rocket scientist lady, and she was probably in her late 60s when she was teaching. And she told me, she said, you know, I'm surprised you got a C in algebra. You seem to understand math fairly well. And I said, well, that's my problem but I don't know algebra, so calculus is becoming even harder to learn. And she goes, you come to my office every day for 1 hour for 2 weeks, and I will teach you algebra. And 2 weeks later, I was a master at algebra. And I was just amazed how this lady could make it something so complicated, so simple, right? But she told me, she goes, you already knew it. I don't think you had a very good professor, so that caused you to not like it. And you were telling yourself that story. So she redeemed my math skills. But yes, we love math and then also logic, right? So accounting's a lot of logic.
Yeah, really trying to break down, I guess, what's reasonable. I mean, we have the term materiality,
Yep.
stuff like that. Like we're very perfectionists, but sometimes what's the cost to benefit ratio? You got to balance that as well.
Yeah, I love that you're talking about that too, because I'll tell you, one of the things I discovered early on in my career is that accounting runs through every part of every business. So as accountants, we get exposure to every part of the business, every facet. And it's really, as you develop your career, you'll find that you know things that other people just don't even understand. So I love what you're doing. I love your learning so far. And I'm sure you will be challenged with the people you're leading. So prepare yourself for that. But I love that you shared with us to be careful with how many things you're taking on, because you can make yourself look very bad very quickly if you're trying to be a little too helpful.
Yep, absolutely.
Right. So what your CFO had taught you is to be careful with how helpful you really are, right?
Yeah, she was a great woman. I'm sad to see her go because I learned so much from her, and I'm sure there was still so much I could have learned from her.
Yeah. Well, stay in touch with her. I'm sure she'll appreciate that. And hey, thanks for coming and sharing some of your wisdom today. We love it when young leaders come on and share some of the things they're learning, because others will watch this and they'll learn from you too. So we appreciate you sharing your wisdom.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All right. Have a great day.
Yeah, you too.
Take care.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, we're back. This is the Strategy Sherpa Show, and we just got to see 3 great recordings. I mean, like if you think about all the recordings and what people were talking about, it's pretty amazing what people were talking about. Like John, John is a surprising leader. I mean, he just his ability to understand accountability, and I loved how he talked about personal and company accountability, because both of those things are really important. First of all, I got to be accountable to myself, and then how am I accountable to the people I lead and the people who I lead with. And I love how he talked about that. And to me, when his insights are very valuable for leaders to really understand. And I think that he's trying to make sure we understand how important accountability is. just enjoyed his segment all the way around. Jordan came in and talked about fear and how much fear affects us, and how we are trying to help the other leaders in our company get through fear and not be afraid to do the things that they need to do to really do their jobs and to move to the next level. And I just love the way he talked about fear and what he had to say about it. I mean, I've known Jordan for a while now. I've actually had the opportunity to sit in rooms with him and do some thinking around the company and the strategy. And I think that Jordan has a lot to offer a company and a lot to offer his leadership in his leadership style, just from the way he's talking about it and helping people through fear. We have to remember that when people are dealing with fear, that they have defense, and there's 7 defense mechanisms that we need to be aware of, but probably the one we need to be aware of in the senior leadership ranks or even in the middle management area, we really need to be aware of rationalization and justification. And when I talk about this with people, I often will say that about 80% of your questions are never really answered. And if you pay attention to it, and where did I get 80%? I don't know if it's 80%. It probably varies from company to company or from person to person. But people often answer you with a rationalization and justification of a question you want answered. So pay attention when you're asking questions, and pay attention to the fear people have, because the fear is real and we need to make sure we're dealing with it as leaders. So I appreciated Jordan coming on. Lucas, just an interesting leader. He's a brand new leader, so he's still a little unsure of his style and how he wants to approach things, but he's discovering things as he's going along, because he was on a path for leadership and he was thrust into it. And I think it was a little overwhelming from him, the way it sounded. And I don't blame him. I think the first time I became a leader in a company and I started taking on leadership roles, it was a little overwhelming for me. And I think most of us plan on when we're going to have these opportunities. Lucas didn't get that choice because his leader left. He had to move up and start to manage, and he's doing a terrific job, just taking it one day at a time, trying to make sure he's paying attention. And I think the best thing for Lucas is he's in a Vistage group that's really going to help him become a better leader. And that's great. We also offer leadership training here at Assured Strategy. We actually offer a 12-month program we call the Peak Leadership Training Program. And we come into your company and actually deliver that leadership training to your team. And we do it once a month over a 12-month period. We don't want to overwhelm everyone with too much information at one time. And we like to have that gap where you go to a class and then you have a month to work on the activities that you learned in that class. And then you come to the next class and build upon what you learned from the last class. So our leadership training over the 12-month period just builds upon each other. And we help develop leaders like Lucas all the time inside of the clients we're working with. And we do it outside of clients we're working with on strategy also. But one of the great things about our program is we tailor it directly to the individual company. So it's very focused on that. And you could have up to 20 leaders in the class. So it makes it very economically viable. I want to go over some of the things that we're working on here at Assured Strategy. We have several webinars. 2 of the webinars coming up on August 22nd. My partner, Kane, is actually doing a webinar on unlocking potential and the psychology of accountability and SMART goals. So some of the things that were discussed even on this last radio show. Accountability being something John talked about quite a bit. Then we're going to be moving into transforming dreaded meetings into productive powerhouses. And that's going to be done by Ted Servata. Ted Servata has been a longtime coach here at Assured Strategy. He's one of our strategy coaches. And we really understand, we go to a lot of meetings. I would say probably Ted and I probably go to about 100 meetings, maybe 150 meetings a year. And we see a lot of bad meetings and we see a lot of good meetings. So we understand how to help people really transform their meetings so they have a lot more productivity. His webinar will really dive into some of the things we see quite a bit. And then on September 17th, Ted and I both are in Denver, Colorado, and we're going to be doing a scaling up workshop there. We're going to be covering the foundations of scaling up and what it really takes to get it into your company. But hey, bring a couple of team members with you to that. It's really going to pay off for you because we're going to actually dive into using some of the tools and helping you use them with your team so that you can become more effective at planning out what you really want to accomplish in your company. And when we help people with this, we really start to get them to focus on that 3-year point. And what do I need to be doing right now? A lot of people say that they want to get processes in their company, but they don't understand. They think that they can just do it in really quickly. And these things are multi-step, take a little bit of time, create a lot of efficiency, but it just does take time. And so you have to really schedule out your priorities to accomplish those things. I really appreciated all 3 of the people coming in and doing the leadership insights with us. I hope you found a lot of value of it. This is the Strategy Sherpa Show, and we'll be back next week with a brand new show. And we look forward to having you come and visit us. Thank you.